Been around for a bit. I've actually been around. I just haven't put a live up for a while. And today's is going to be kind of long. And it has a provocative title Hell is for Children. And there's a reason for that. And something extraordinary happened to me today that brings this up front and center for me. So, the last several weeks, I've been working on a side project that involves some litigation, not about me, but where I was called to be an expert witness in the field that I used to be in for 30 years, from 1977 to 2007, and that required that I read, I think it was 2,600 pages of deposition testimony, and then write a paper, which turned out to be 27 pages of expert opinion on particular aspects of that case. And that took many, many hours. And so that's one of the reasons. But another thing is I just have been thinking a lot. I've been working on a book, which I'll talk about more later. And it's the concluding volume of the Tightrope trilogy that started with Tightrope of Depression, my journey from darkness, despair, and death to light, love, and life. And that, is one of the reasons I use this phoenix as my logo and symbol in a lot of things. This is just a beautiful picture of one of, I don't know, many, many, many pictures that I have of rising from ashes and the fire and everything. And the second volume in that series was Down from the Gallows, The Truth, the Myth, and Battles of a Creative with Depression. And the third volume, which will be the conclusion, I'm working on. And as you may or may not know, I did an album of music telling stories with each of those books. And those are on Spotify and Apple and Amazon, a bunch of places. And the album that went with Tightrope of Depression is called Name of the Black, because I couldn't think of a more appropriate name. And that's going to matter in today's topic about hell being for children. And the second album that went with the book Down from the Gallows is called Promise and Power, and tells stories from that second volume. And the third album is half done. I think all 11 songs are picked, and several of them are written, and some are recorded. I've got 3 that I'm going to put up pretty soon on all the platforms, because I decided not to wait till they were done. This album will probably have 15 songs instead of 11. No reason, just arbitrary. Anyway, in process, my goal, my life, everything that I do is about helping you feel loved and to manifest your divinity, your gifts, to be the true person you can be. And I used to hear that sort of language and think, okay, people say weird stuff like that because they don't want to talk about money, which is the only thing people really want anyway. And none of that's even remotely true. It's so untrue on several levels. It's almost funny now that I think about it, for how I used to feel about all that. Because you, whoever you are watching this, you can create all the money you want. There's not a shortage of money. There's an infinite supply, because it's energy, and you can have what you want. In fact, you do have what you want. You just don't think so, because we tend to, I used to do this all the time, blame external circumstances. Anyway, that's a topic for a whole nother live stream. In the process of moving into my new goal, so my year goes from October 14th to October 14th. And you might wonder why. Well, that's my wife's birthday. And Joy is my wife, is my joy. She's an angel. She is my song, my balance, and the light in my heart. Anyway, last year's goal was to help 10 million people discover, develop, and serve with their divine gifts, and in so doing, create a life, their own life, day to day, of purpose, prosperity, which includes all that cash, and joy. And that's the work that I do, coaching. It's about who we're being. And of course, I've worked on that myself now, starting in 2007. So for the last 15 years, I was 52 that year. And the years before that, I didn't really know enough or understand where I was and what was going on in my life to allow me to do that very effectively. Anyway, this year that just started 2 weeks ago now, or almost 3 weeks, the goal is the same, except it's 50 million. So I'm committed to helping 50 million people this year from October 14th to October 14th, 2023. And by help, I mean inspire, lift, bless, love, honor, encourage. There's lots of ways that I do it through my podcasts and through these lives and through books that I write. And then I have many, many coaching clients. I was just amazed the other day. I was looking over my list of clients and it was quite long. And then I looked at the list of people that are not active clients and there was just so many. And I thought, wow, I really have had the opportunity to touch a lot of lives. And that doesn't even count the ripple effect for how each person, each of us moves forward and creates an impact. A friend of mine, Ken MacArthur, just finished a movie a few months ago called The Impact Factor. And it's based on the premise that we have an impact, whether we mean to or not, or want to or not. And so anyway, the reason I named today's Hell is for Children is in the process of creating content and doing things and reaching the 10 million last year and 50 million this year. I have the chance to create a television series, as many television series as I want. So the one I'm working on is now called Creatives Save the World. And the next season, which will start in December, is going to be called Your Words Create Your World. Or I might name it Your Words Create Your Life. Anyway, so in the process of doing that, I hired a videography crew, and we've spent now 3 days. This was a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, spent 3 days shooting, telling stories, 28 vignettes and stories, and a whole bunch of B-roll outdoor footage on hills and in the woods and in the backyard and all kinds of stuff to put it together to use as stuff for the TV show and the everything, all my presence online. Again, all in service of helping you feel loved and create the opportunity to have everything you want and do whatever you want. Because that's really true. And I've learned that. And so that's how I've created it for me. Anyway, in looking, I've got a creative director that is working with me. And I was looking at some editing that my creative director did. And so I was just looking over one of the videos and it came to a place where I referenced this title, Hell is for Children. And actually that was the name of that little segment. And when I recorded that segment and when I used that, it's also the name of one of the chapters in Tightrope. I was reflecting on my upbringing and the abuse that I suffered. And I had felt like that I had dealt with it, completely forgiven everyone, and it was no longer affecting me in really any substantive way because I hold no anger or bitterness or judgment about anything. Everybody's on their own journey, you, me, all of us. And those who did things to me earlier, for over and over and over and over again till I left home, right? I don't hold anything. They're on their own journey and they'll do and be and have whatever they do. So I felt resolved, complete, finished with that. I didn't harbor negativity. Anyway, in watching his edit of the video, it was really good. And I mentioned Hell is for Children because it was the name of that segment. And then I referenced the song. And in the video, I said, well, that song by Pat Benatar. And I'm of the age when I knew all those songs when they came out. And I really enjoyed Pat Benatar, her work and things. And so when I heard that in the video, I all of a sudden thought, I need to listen to that song because I couldn't remember any of it except the chorus, which is Hell is for Children. And it talks about child abuse and the kinds of things that I received and that many people receive in greater or lesser measures, administered by parents and relatives and that are trying to, create behavior and discipline and things that, the kind of discipline I got today in 2022 would be felony child abuse. But anyway, and it was discipline at that time. The thing that it created for me was the genesis of my belief that I wasn't good enough, depression, and that I lived with without talking to anyone or getting any help for 35 years till I was 52. And that started my journey of recovery and writing books and all that stuff. Anyway, so I saw this video telling this story and thought I should go look at this song again. And it was that kind of feeling. It's intuition, right? So I just did it, and I called it up, and there was a YouTube video. It wasn't a live performance. It was just one of those where they play the music and then there's a static picture. But this particular one had the lyrics with it. And it started, and then those of you that know Pat Benatar, a rocker and all that sort of stuff. And so here we are rocking to this song, and then the words appeared on the screen, and I had the most unexpected reaction. By the time it got to the second line in the song, I was a mess. My heart was fluttering. I was weak, and I was weeping. And I looked, and it was, I don't know exactly why, but it touched something reminiscent, deep, painful, exquisitely, incredibly, bleedingly painful that I thought was not buried, because you don't bury those things. I thought was released. And then I looked at the video. I didn't watch the video, but I had stopped the video in the middle. So there I was, speaking in a frozen pose, right? And as I listened to that song play, I looked at my own image. And as I wept, I could see in my own image in the video the pain, the scars, even though I wasn't talking about those things. I was upbeat and talking about good stuff. It became apparent to me, and I could see. And so what it seemed like is I've done a lot of work over the last 15 years since I changed my life in 2007, and I was struck. At first, it was horrifying, painful, and it didn't make me angry, and it didn't make me depressed, but it was just a visceral connection to the pain of the truth of that feeling of fear. The greatest, if I had to pick the biggest memory of my childhood, it isn't anything fun or exciting. It isn't the vacations, which I remember. It wasn't school or anything there. It was the overarching feeling of fear is the thing that is strongest in my recollection. And this touched that in a way that, you know what I mean. We don't have language to truly express, and I was weeping. And it was painful, and then it became more tangible and releasing, and I could touch it without having it destroy me. But what it felt like is I was remembering one of the songs on Name of the Black, the album that tells stories from Tightrope of Depression. And one of those songs is named The Dark Side of Black. And the name of the album itself, Name of the Black, I picked because, there was a time when I was so depressed and had so much going on and struggling with so much, including addictions and relationships and divorce for the third time and all this stuff, that I'd attempted suicide. And when you come to that place where you look in the mirror and you see yourself and you believe there's no excuse for who you are or any of that stuff, and I'm not going to go to great lengths to describe it, because if you've been there, you know. And there's no other answer except everything everybody says is right, and it drives you to that place of such horror that I couldn't ever describe it, and so I only called that feeling the Name of the Black. So that's the name of the feeling, and that turned out to be the name of the album. Anyway, in believing that through all this work in these years, I had released all of this, I was first shocked and then grateful to realize that what happened between the combination of hearing the lyric to that song and seeing my own image in the video, it felt for a moment like all I had really done is clear away the underbrush. And finally, at this moment, I was standing at the door to the chamber of unspeakable horrors that had been caged, catalogued, collected, and stored in my heart. And I listened to the song twice, which is about 7.5 minutes. And the first time through was the biggest meltdown. Second time through was better. But what it let me understand is how deep, how buried those things can be. And unlike in previous years and decades when that kind of feeling would have just destroyed me for a day or perhaps weeks, I felt it, I experienced it, I was able to let it go. And then I went and talked to Joy about it. And I've decided to go do some more things, to try some stuff that I've heard is helpful, because it was clear to me that even with the intense work that I've done and that I do still every day in terms of declaring who I am and working from a place of light, that there are things, there are chambers, and this felt like, an unspeakable chamber of horrors. And it just broke me down. I was weeping. And then coping, and then back. But I share that with you because it just happened about an hour ago and was unexpected. And so I share it also from a place of gratitude, of having been able to understand what it was, experience it and not hide from it, and then let it go. And also I'm excited because it's encouraged me to go try some things that I'm going to try. And perhaps in a week or two, when I have done what I want to try, I will report about that. But I share that because I know all of us, each person has those things. How big they are, how much they hurt, how close to the surface, how buried, how trigger happy, how overwhelming. That, varies by the person and by how much other work's been done. But I am so grateful for Joy, for my relationship with the divine, and for the understanding that I now have that those feelings are just feelings and they all come back until we release them. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to empathize, to love you, whoever you are, in the struggles that you have, whatever they are. Because love is still the answer. Forgiveness is still the path. And there is a way out of every dark corner, every dark room, even that nameless chamber of horrors, which I re-experienced today, just at the doorway, with only being able to imagine what's inside. But the fun part was, it was not from a place of fear that I understood that. And that was a real blessing. That was the gift. And so I find myself really grateful for the little confluence of events, and there are no accidents. So the confluence of beautiful events that brought me to this, through this experience, which is just starting, because it triggered me to go on another path. And that's all. I share that with you in the greatest of love, encouragement, no matter how dark, no matter how much struggle, no matter how little or how much work has been done. There's always opportunity to grow, to be. And I can't wait to get into that. We'll see you tomorrow.